And Paddy Stapleton is on the line, I believe. Morning to you, Paddy.
Hi, how are you doing?
Fine, thanks. So much to get into here, so I'm going to start in no particular order at all. But Leinster will kick off there. It's tomorrow night, 6:15. It's Galway, Kilkenny, and Galway with the stiffer test, maybe, and handed out a pummeling, obviously, to Wexford. It wasn't necessarily like Galway were that far off it last year, but are you seeing that as a sign? Do you think that Galway are a live option this year?
Well, I definitely do. And it's been so long since we played hurling back in the spring that you kind of can only go on what's happening now. They've had new management, so it was very obvious to see there was a change in tactics. There was a lot more emphasis on tactics, matchups, and they really knew what they were about. There was no sort of go out and let's see what happens. They were moving the ball where they wanted to move it. They put players into positions where they had problems. Kincannon up front, Whelan. They just seem to be very strong in each line. I think they're a serious option going forward. And bar Limerick now at the minute, obviously you don't want to disrespect my own county, Tipperary. You know, they're All-Ireland champions. But at the moment, on form, a year later, like it's not like the All-Ireland was a few months ago. A year later, Galway looked like really the team that can topple Limerick.
Is that as much to do with physicality as much as anything else, Paddy?
Yeah, I think like it all plays into it. There's no point in having physicality if you don't have hurling. You know, I've often played against, muck savages of players, but they can't hurl, like, so there's no point in that. But they have it both ways, pretty obviously. And they probably have had that for a few years. But I think since they won the All-Ireland, I don't know if they look as organised or certainly as motivated, but you could really see the other day they were on it. They were switched on for every break and play. And I'd say that's because there was a new element of tactic brought into it. And they probably had some new targets with a new manager, Shane O'Neill. I've heard great things about him from a few different people. But he's certainly a very switched on manager. So I think it's reflected in his players. But physicality, yeah, I think it's something you'll struggle against the likes of a Limerick without it. And it's Limerick we're looking at now because they are the real form team.
Is there a way around it at all then? Like, is there, like, obviously you have to bring that level no matter who you're up against, but is there a tactical shift? Is there a way of thinking around a team like Limerick at this point, or is their brute force actually too much to contend with unless you can match them in the physical department?
I think you have to have a certain amount of physicality. Like you'd say, Kilkenny played them last year, and to be fair to Kilkenny last year, they brought an all-merciful amount of ferocity. And I know we throw around intensity, but that was barbaric stuff, I thought, the All-Ireland semi last year. And they still only barely beat Limerick. So I think you will need that. I think we'll see a switch, though, in tactic. I think every team for the last 5-6 years, definitely when I was playing, it was there that they want to hold their backs. They want to hold the 3 full back line, 3.5 back line, sit your midfielder. I just think Limerick are so good, they sit their full forward line so deep that they create an unbelievable amount of space anyway. So I think that tactic is nearly null and void. So if I was playing cornerback against the Limerick now, I'd tell all my players, shove right up against them. And people say, that's crazy, they're going to get goal chances or space, but they're getting it anyway. So it doesn't matter. So I prefer to see what Kilkenny did last year. They shoved up very hard. That meant the Limerick forwards had to come back the field. And they actually had cover back there anyway. So I think the forwards, maybe they'll have to pick a few backs to go into the forwards at this stage against them.
That's a fascinating point. And like on it, so when you look at the likes of Aaron Gillane, for example, who's really stood out the shadow of some of his teammates over the last year, and he's a brilliant hurler, but is it a case then that the system really suits him, and if you take him out of it, either you mark him out of it or tactically you take him out of it, somebody else steps in? Or is it a case that actually if Waterford on Sunday can get the shackles on him, that actually they get the shackles on Limerick?
I just don't think it's that simple, I think Aaron Gillane is unbelievable and he suits that. But what's to say if he wasn't gone that John Kiley and Paul Kirk wouldn't have another little trinket in there that suits better? Like Flanagan was playing when they won the All-Ireland. I still can't understand how he's not playing. I think he's fantastic, and I think the day that they do come in trouble, they'll miss Seamus Flanagan playing full forward, because he is so physical and it's very hard. I'm obviously playing the full back line, and the worst thing I hated was a forward who actually wanted to fight you. Most of them want to kind of run away from it. Not that they were imposed by me, obviously, but they want to kind of run away and get into space, and you can't be a forward that actually, Bonner Maher type, Conor Whelan type, that say, no, I'm physically well able for you, and I'm going to shove you around the place. So that's quite intimidating for a cornerback. But I think their system works. And Gillane, the problem with Gillane, it'd be horrible to mark, is he's a great movement, which is one. They look up to find him, which is the other part of the jigsaw. But if you try and play him from the front, he's unbelievable to ghost him behind, as you've seen. Play your hurley or play your helmet and catch him behind. And if that happens, it's probably a goal. And then if you sit back to stop that, he's just going to run out into the space, get the ball because his control is so good, and flick it over the bar. So if I was playing against him, I'd prefer he wasn't playing, but I still think that they'd find a way to do damage.
When you look at that, and obviously hopping around, but that with the Munster final in mind, like when Limerick had their necks in the block last year, they dismantled Waterford and Welsh Park, much tighter in the league, and it's maybe you put more emphasis on last year's game, and is that the way you expect it to go?
I wouldn't put more emphasis on last year by any stretch, to be honest with you. I think similar to Galway, there's a new management in there, and that can really bring a big hop. Even if I think back to my days when Liam Sheedy came in 08, it was like an instantaneous changeover after a kind of a lull. So I think that's really important. I would obviously know Liam Cal, his form. I wouldn't know him personally, but I'd know his form from the Tipp minors and 21s. And that Waterford team has started out the way he finished with those underage teams. And, you know, a lot of people are asking, could he do that? Could he get the same hop out of adults? You know, because they're different to kids. But he is, and they have a savage intensity, but they have a real hunger for work. So I would put a lot more credence in the way Waterford are playing now. I still think, you know, it's very early in their development with Liam to be winning the Munster final, but I actually wouldn't put it past them. Liam Cal has won All Ireland's with under-21 team a few years ago against Cork that probably shouldn't have happened, and it was an unbelievable win against the Head. So I wouldn't put it past them. You'd still think Limerick have that experience against Kilkenny last year when they were kind of caught cold early on, you know, big lead, Kilkenny rushed out to, and it's hard to see that happening again.
It seems that he's broken down the elements of management into quite simplistic terms, like get the best out of your best players, and the form of Austin Gleeson and Ty de Burke is surely very encouraging from a Waterford perspective. Yeah,
100%. Both having good games the last day. I think Austin Gleeson, you know, he gave him a position. You just say you're playing wing forward or wherever you're there. So I think under Derek McGrath, it was more of a, well, Austin is a flair player, let's get him moving around so he can get free. And I often think that's the easiest one to mark, because you send out, you know, a good tight man marker on him, and that's a lot of their tactic that's diminished. I think, you know, get him into a position and let him cause damage there and keep the shape of the team. And I think de Burke centre back, I think it was brilliant last day, because he's played as a sweeper for about 5-6 years under Derek McGrath, and a lot of people question whether he could actually play as an orthodox centre back. But the work rate of the team further up the field allowed him to actually sit into a more natural position. So he showed his real array of skills the other day, and he's a tough man as well. So I think it shows they have the leadership right through the team. Whether the youngsters around can go with it is another thing.
Yeah, a couple of interesting games obviously in the qualifiers as well. Tipp against Cork, LIT tomorrow at 4:00, and the sweeper that Cork were playing in the Dublin game. It's hard to know how much to read into that with Mark Coleman. But when you look at some of those Tipp forwards and the capacity that they have, are you assuming that Cork go the same again with the same player, or what are you thinking?
If you were to take tradition out of it and take maybe ego out of it and what counties want to do, and some don't want to play with a sweeper, like they're looking at just tactics. Like I probably would play with a sweeper for Cork, and they kind of stumbled upon it the last day. And Cork's backline has often been maligned, you know, much maligned. And I think it does add a bit of security there. And also, I'm not sure Cork need 6 forwards in a way, because they're very, very good when they get good ball. And I think if you have 7 backs setting up the play, you're a lot more likely to get good ball up there. And I think it is likely, or maybe they'll start as an orthodox 6, and if Tipp forwards are getting too much room, maybe they'll switch. But with it being a heavy ball, you know, Tipp's forwards weren't very impressive the last day, and certainly they didn't turn over the Limerick backs too often. So maybe Cork feel like they won't need it.
Yeah. The other one is that there's no real interesting talking points, obviously, about the Clare Wexford game, and nobody's mentioned the war during the week. On the pitch, what are you thinking? What's going to happen?
You know, it's a little up and down. Obviously, as we know, we're going into it. It's kind of you're blind going into it, because Wexford were just so un-Wexford under Davy the last day. Yeah, I was shocked. I really thought to give Galway a really good game, because like Wexford know that they had a real shot of winning All Ireland last year, because I think if they got to the final, they're well used to putting Kilkenny away in the last few years, and tactics doesn't suit Kilkenny that Wexford play. But I was shocked. So this is going to just drain away, and Davies' tenure is going to drain away with Wexford, or I think we could see a real humdinger from him the next day. And I would be fancying Wexford, especially McInerney is missing for Clare. I think he's one of their pivotal players, one of the remaining All-Stars from 2013. So without him, you're missing a bit of leadership among the other, as well as the other players. So I back Wexford, and I think Davy is a very good motivator. And I think being caught once is enough. And I'd say that Wexford chaps won't want to hear it again if they don't perform in the first half the next day.
Yeah, I see your brother giving that stink about it on online as well. We'll see what sort of an impact it has in that game. Well, he's giving that stink about everything, I suppose, is maybe the key with that. Right. Listen, not only are you like have been an unbelievable intercounty hurler and like turning into a great analyst, but you're putting us all to shame now by actually getting into the literary world as well. Tell us about the new book.
Yeah, actually, should I actually get a copy? That was probably silly me. So maybe I should get a bit better at the PR. Okay,
that's it. We have an image of it up on screen anyway.
That's all right. Yeah, so it's called Up in the Air, and basically it is for kids. It's a kind of a fictional Irish story for kids based around a fictional hurling team called Glenstown. Now the main character and kind of best player is Fitzy. Not to Davy Fitz now, but his big dream, like he's obsessed. Like he wants to win the county final, and they lost it last year, so he's doubly obsessed this year. But sometimes that's actually it becomes too much, and I think it's all about his struggles of trying to be good enough and wanting to be the captain and wanting to be the lad that lifts the trophy. But the problem is there's a star player like a Joe Canning that's threatening to transfer to one of the clubs nearby, and they know all about him. But he doesn't know who he's transferring to, and this is playing havoc with his mind. And so the worries about Arnie, and the worries about wanting to be captain and wanting to be the best player, and that goes through the ups and downs of their season, and can they win that championship? So, I'm delighted with it. I'm really happy how it came out. It took a lot of hard work, I suppose, as any journalist will know. Writing isn't always easy. I wouldn't say I'm the most natural writer, but really enjoyed it, and there's been big impact online already with it, so I'm absolutely with it.
Something you were thinking about for a while, Paddy? What was it? An itch you wanted to scratch for a while?
I'd say it was. Yeah, I think one of the lads I befriended with, I said it to him about 3 years ago, and it was kind of like, like anyone, like Fitzy in the book, it's like, have I the confidence to go and do it? To be honest, I'm an English teacher, but that doesn't mean I go and I write creative pieces all the time. I've done a bit of writing, with Shane, my brother, and I've done it for local newspaper about hurling and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean you can write creatively. So yeah, I just made the decision. I finally pushed myself into it, but like I had to pull together a new system of actually writing, because I never creatively wrote much before, but I kind of just went back to the basics of what do I teach my kids in school about mind mapping and coming up with different elements and writing it all down and creatively solving problems was a lot of the book. So I really enjoyed it. I just hope a couple of kids get something out of it. I've sent out samples to some of the schools, and I've had a few test reads, so I'm really delighted with the feedback, and even I have a few adults now who are enjoying it as well. So I hope it has a nice layer, and if there is parents or coaches, whoever want to read it, that they enjoy it.
That's great. We'll definitely be getting a copy in this house anyway. Listen, fair play, keep up the good work, and enjoy that chat. Thanks a million, Paddy.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a million.